Hello and welcome back to another new edition of Windows and Current Affairs. And today we are going to take a comprehensive look over one of the most recent presidential initiatives according to the directives of His Excellency, the Head of State President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, that is a continuation of 100 million lives and, of course, an advanced step to taking a deeper look and concern into the lives of the Egyptian citizens, and it is the 100 Days of Health presidential initiative. And of course, it is taking over its shoulder, of course, a lot of missions. We're going to be talking about that in full detail. We're very delighted to be having with us here live in the studio Dr. Islam Anan. He's lecturer pharmacy economics,
yes.
And he's going to be talking to us about that particular health initiative and how is it going to add to 100 million lives, and what is it going to present to the Egyptian citizens, especially probably the elderly citizens. I mean, some sectors of society who probably haven't had enough chance to get an opportunity to get the best interest of 100 million lives. Good evening, Dr. Anan, and welcome to Windows on Current Affairs. And let's first of all give a definition of this presidential initiative. What exactly is that initiative, and what new is it going to present to Egypt?
Good evening, Ms. Dina, and thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
My real pleasure.
So, if you are talking about the 100 Days of Health presidential initiative, we need just to highlight that it's not a new initiative to Egypt. It's a refreshment of the existing presidential initiatives of health. So, we do have the non-communicable diseases presidential initiative, which was launched in 2018. And the main objective of the non-communicable disease initiative is to screen individuals for diabetes and for hypertension, dyslipidemia, and obesity. So throughout the 5 years, Egypt screened around 25 million Egyptians for the non-communicable. Same goes for the breast cancer initiative for women health. And Egypt screened 25 million, and currently it's 30 million Egyptian females for breast cancer, as well as the neonates screening. So the 100 days, it's a refreshment for all the presidential initiatives that were launched in 2018 and 2018. So mainly the main objective is to remind people that you can still go to the healthcare units, primary care, and screen for non-communicable disease, diabetes, hypertension, dyslipidemia, obesity. You can, for all females, screen for breast cancer. Even if they screened in 2018 and 2019, they can make checkup, especially that sometimes in the screening, we advise women to make a regular checkup every year, every 12 months. And finally, for the neonates and for the other presidential initiative as well, like hearing presidential initiative for children, like, for example, mother and fetus presidential initiative, we are talking that the presidential initiative since 2018 launched 20 programs. 20 programs starting from neonates screening till senior citizens screening for all diseases starting from birth, even pregnant women, mothers, till senior citizen level above 65. So that's the main objective. Making people go and screen themselves. And actually, the good thing about the 100 days that it showed us that the culture itself in Egypt started to change. Previously, we were all the time saying that when you do a screening, you don't have a lot of acceptance from individuals to go screen if they don't have any disease. We are asking people to come. They are still healthy. They don't suffer any disease. And just, I need you to check your diabetes profile, your hypertension, and so on. Previously, in 2015, 2016, it was very difficult to convince anyone to go to the primary care. Currently, the culture is different. People started to know that I can go for screening because it's better to treat early than to discover that you have, for example, breast cancer at a late stage. Egypt, to tell you one example from the presidential initiative, in the breast cancer screening, discovered most of the cases at phase 1 breast cancer. Previously, 5 years ago, we were actually discovering all the cases. We are talking 65% to 60% at late stage breast cancer. At the late stage breast cancer, actually, unfortunately, the case most probably will die in a very low survival rate, and the treatment cost is very, very much expensive. We are talking 25 times the treatment cost if I'm discovering at phase 1, for example. Plus, the most important thing is we can manage the survival of the case, and there is no fatality if we are discovering in stage 1. So this culture and that change in culture, from my opinion and my perspective, is one of the main success factors that we discovered in the 100 days for health.
Right. You just hinted or pointed out to a very important fact, which is the culture is changing. And probably the culture is changing because of the support and the emerge of initiatives like that. Probably President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, with his foresight and vision, thought of that particular aim or particular mission of it is more of changing the culture of people, spreading awareness amongst some sectors of society, especially the informal settlements, the rural area, the low-income brackets, probably people who are busy. Even we as people, we do not have enough time sometimes. We feel sick, but we feel that it might take some of our time. And when I find that around the corner of the street, I can step down from where I work or where I live, and I can go have a quick checkup, this is going to probably encourage me to take heed of some problems that I have as problems. So talking about culture, which is not me, because I'm talking about a broad sector of society who thought that those initiatives are aiming like 70% towards changing the culture of people.
Yes, exactly.
The awareness, the health awareness of people.
It's a very important point.
Like you kindly said, amongst, like, for example, the working mothers, supporting mothers, the illiterate people, the elderly.
Yes, exactly.
Those are sectors who probably might never have thought of going to see a doctor.
Yes, exactly.
Honestly speaking.
This is a very important point that you highlighted, because Egypt, even as a vision from the presidential office and President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi vision for 2030, it changed a little bit the vision of health as well. If you look at the vision of 2030 for health, you will find that we are moving more towards a person-centric healthcare, what we call a person-centric healthcare. Person-centric healthcare.
What does that mean?
We have 3 centricities for healthcare. Either we work on a system centricity, where we're just making a good infrastructure of hospitals, regardless the cure rate, regardless taking care of patients or not. And some countries are focusing on the system centricity, where they only focus on having data for having good hospitals, and that's it. Some other countries having a patient centricity, where they only care about the cure rates, number of hospitalization, mortality rates of each disease, which we call a health parameters. And finally, the ultimate objective of any healthcare is to be a person-centric. Person-centric, it means I'm promoting health as a product, and I don't want a healthy individual to be a patient. So I can either focus on patients or focus on healthy individuals not to be patients. So in order to move, we used to be a patient-centric country. To move from a patient-centric to a person-centric, it required a lot of changes inside the healthcare system. For example, we are focusing on screening healthy individuals, so we are making sure that there is no patients discovered in a late stage diseases. We are trying to focus on obesity campaign. So for 4 years...
Does that include obesity, by the way?
Yes.
I mean, the first one.
We do have two campaigns, 2 presidential initiatives for obesity.
That was prior to this one.
Yes.
But this one, does it still work on obesity?
Exactly, yeah.
Because we remember very well as the media that obesity as an issue was not really familiar to Egyptian people. I mean, like some people thought it was okay.
And they don't know that it is a disease. So currently it is defined as a disease.
They never recognized that until President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi talked about obesity on 2 accounts.
Yes, I will tell you, for example, since 2018, Egypt and President Sisi launched what we call obesity, stunting, anemia, children presidential initiative.
Very important.
It screens every year 10 million school children for obesity, for anemia, and for stunting. And we track records every year through the health insurance organization, the Egyptian HIO, to track whether we are increasing in terms of obesity, anemia, and stunting, or we are decreasing, and whether there is an effective measurement or not. This year, the results just was actually reported last month.
They are on decline?
They are declining. Stunting percentage declined like 2%. Obesity declined around 3%. Anemia as well started to decline around 1%. So we are heading towards a better health, and I'm focusing mainly on obesity because we do have a major problem in obesity among school age and among below 18 years old. And once you treat and manage obesity for the young and youth, you are ensuring that you have a good citizen contributing to the economy, because obesity will lead to cardiovascular diseases after 40. It will lead to a lot of metabolic syndromes. Same as obesity, we are talking as well as smoking cessation. This is a person-centric initiative because smoking is carcinogenic. And we are talking about a lot of cardiovascular comorbidities and correlation with smoking. We're talking about lung cancer, for example. So the change in the mindset of healthcare changed as well the mindset, back to your point, the culture of the individuals themselves. We actually managed somehow to make people go and seek screening without having any disease. And I can even contribute some of the change in culture to COVID. Before COVID, people were not going to any screening like now. After COVID, they started to realize that it's okay to go to a healthcare unit, it's okay to have a screening, and they have witnessed that some cases were discovered late for COVID, it ended up with mortality. So currently, when you just announce you have a healthcare unit doing a breast cancer initiative, you do find a queue of women actually till the end of the street just waiting to make the screening, which was not the culture before.
It became familiar.
Exactly.
I mean, it's almost like 4 years now.
Yes, since 2018.
And it's stretching to some countries in Africa also.
Yes, yes. And the main question they're all the time asking, and that's the most familiar question to me, is we are spending billions on presidential initiative. We are spending almost 20 billions. However, the health return is very high. If we take one example, the breast cancer initiative we were talking about, Egypt spent 2.5 billion Egyptian pounds to run the screening and to encourage women, the promotional campaigns, the screening, the healthcare professionals' fees, and so on. It was 2.5 billion. However, when you look at the return of investment, the ROI of the campaign, you actually saved 3.5 billion, because you discovered 60% of the cases at stage 1. So you saved all the cost that you will actually pay 3 or 4 years later when you actually discover them in stage 4. The hearing presidential initiative for neonates, for example, every pound spent on it, it actually saved around 3.5 pounds. So it's a very highly beneficial, or what we call a CBA, cost-benefit analysis. It's a highly beneficial. Same goes for the non-communicable diseases. Every pound you are spending, you are returning around 4 pounds. Same as for all the presidential initiative. Before they launch the presidential initiative, they make sure that we are targeting the right disease. We're not just doing any screening for any type of cancer or any type of disease without a good feasibility study, without a good economic study to ensure that it is a person-centric, we are getting a return, and the main objective is by 2030 will be a person-centric country, all of it, with the universal health insurance covering all the citizens and actually promoting more the health as a product rather than just treating diseases.
Right. What exactly is non-communicable disease, and exactly who could be prone to that type of disease? Because, of course, you as a doctor, you can have a good
the non-communicable disease
definition, but other people, I mean, even educated people, won't be realizing the depth or the gravity of danger of some of these diseases.
Perfect. So the NCD, or non-communicable diseases, are the chronic diseases. We are talking about hypertension, cardiovascular diseases, and heart diseases. We're talking about diabetes, we're talking about dyslipidemia, and cancer. Yes, hypercholesterolemia, and we are talking as well for cancer. So all the diseases that's not caused by infectious diseases are called the non-communicable. And currently, we are focusing as well on communicable, which is a good thing. Before, we were only researching non-communicable and a very limited research on communicable. Communicable is like COVID. It's like dengue fever. Currently, there is around 300 cases of dengue fever in Upper Egypt.
Dengue fever?
Dengue fever, yeah. So
that's a new kind of fever? Or
it's not that new one. We are acquainted with it in Egypt. Yes, what we call Humad Dank or dengue fever.
Okay.
We witness it every couple of years. But alhamdulillah, it's always around below 500 cases. There is no mortality from it. Dengue fever, it's actually from a vector mosquito called Aegyptus.
Okay. That has been on for a long time. I mean,
yes,
for a long time.
And even the mosquito name is Aegyptus. So the Egyptian mosquito.
I mean, some countries,
yes, it got 3 to 5 days incubation, and then it got like 5 days of symptoms, like flu symptoms.
Is it similar to malaria?
But alhamdulillah, it's not severe like malaria. Not severe like malaria. It's 3 to 5 days of high fever, some swelling in lymph nodes, some rash. And usually we treat symptoms. There is no need to take any specific medication for it. So if people are all the time now talking about there is cases of dengue fever, it will increase or not? No, most probably it will not increase. Since 70s we have dengue fever. And a very important note is an infected person of dengue fever, we're not going to be able to infect a healthy individual.
That's very
There is no infection between human to human infection. The infection is from the human to the mosquito itself. So human, we infect the mosquito, then the mosquito will transfer the infection to a healthy individual.
But let me ask you about the awareness again. Yeah. Because we as media, we tend to see the awareness part of, from every scene. Like, for example, this new initiative or the other, former initiatives, the awareness part is very important. Like, do doctors, people like me, people who are educated, the younger people, the children who go, mothers with their children, when they ask a doctor, what about, like, for example, taking a vitamin C pill every day? What about if I have to take vitamin D for the rest of my life at a certain age? I keep hearing vitamin E because of what? Another type of vitamin for immunity, the omega-3.
Omega-3, yeah.
All of these issues are very important for people. Are there doctors to also give that type of service, or it is only for screening people? Because we are in bad need.
I will tackle both. So if we're talking about the screening itself, it's just a screening and then a referral to the treatment units. So there is units responsible for screening only. So if I discovered, for example, a hypertensive case or a cancer case, and then I refer the subject, the person, to the treatment facility. And then if he needs, for example, chemotherapy, if they need, for example, taking antihypertensive medication, they will take it as per their insurance, because the screening campaign, it's a national one. But our treatment insurance as Egyptians, it varies. Some are actually covered with the health insurance organization. Some are covered on state fund, على نفقة الدولة. And some are actually covered with the Universal Health Insurance Organization, which is a new insurance system. Or private insurance. However, if we are tackling the second thing, which is the immunity itself, what we are aiming for all individuals is balanced immunity, not increasing immunity, because the increase in immunity is a disease on its own.
Exactly.
So we need to balance the immunity, that we do have a healthy and a good immunity. And actually it's very easy in terms of steps, and very easy said than done, is to have enough sleep. That's first of all. So we are talking between 6 to 8 deep sleep.
See, the biological hour.
Biological hour.
But not through the day.
Some people are actually advising to divide them, 4 and 4 or 3 and 3. But anyhow, just to take enough sleep during the day. We are talking about water, drinking water.
Like how much? What?
You, by all means, must exceed 2 liters per day.
2 liters, okay.
If it's 3 liters, it will be better. But just to make it realistic, 2 liters will be enough.
2 liters is
And
good.
then there is a very important one, which is to stay away from alcohol, from smoking, or from any
course.
pollution. And a fourth one, which is slightly hard, is to be away from stress,
Which is very good.
if we can.
Right.
But, this is the main thing. And if there is any nutrient or vitamin deficiency in the body, we need to identify it before taking vitamins. Because we cannot just take any vitamin and increase in omega-3 and multivitamins we are all the time taking, because the increase of vitamins inside the human body is also a disease. There is what we call a hypervitaminosis. It means that I'm taking too much vitamin than what my body actually needs.
That is going to affect my kidney and my liver also?
It will in fact, it depends on the vitamin itself, but sometimes some vitamins, without going into detail, some vitamins it's okay to have an exceeded daily amount. Some are actually harmful, whether to the stomach, harmful sometimes to the bones, to the kidney, to the renal system in general. So this is very what I said, a very sad.
The reason I asked that, because I know that this is one of your, I mean, nobody could ever talk to us better than you about
Thank you,
I mean,
Nadine.
this type of awareness.
And it
vitamin
needs
and
awareness, and what we
medicine.
are doing currently, I hope it raises awareness somehow to the people that it's not a difficult thing. We don't need a lot of vitamins to balance it. We just need to follow a simple life, if we can. Just take it easy. I all the time say, just take it easy and don't overthink.
We try.
We try, but most people overthink.
Of course.
Yeah, and it kept them awake at night.
The momentum is like, it's not like before. But I mean, talking about the normal everyday life, I mean, even on social media, the bloggers and everything, they are always, setting awareness about how you wake up in the morning and you take some important vitamins, I mean, you take important things, and which is good. But at the same time, we should be aware that we should not exceed, or we should not stay for a long time. I mean, how long are we supposed to take a certain vitamin?
Some multivitamins, they give you the daily needed amount per day, which is okay. We're not going to be able to say brands, but some brands you can actually take it for good for life, because it will never exceed the daily limit. For example, if we're talking omega-3, all of us, we do have deficiency in omega-3. It's very rare to find any individual with the adequate amount of omega-3 in his body. So it's okay as well to take omega-3. However, the very important note is there is omega-3, there is omega-6, there is omega-9. And we need to focus on omega-3 only. Omega-6 is already in meat, red meat. So we do have excessive omega-6 in our body. And omega-9 is not needed. And we do have sufficient amount. So purified omega-3 is what we actually need to have every day. This is okay, for example. A lot of brands are purified omega-3. Multivitamins with traces, it's okay as well to take it every day in the morning. However, as I was saying, if you are people taking isolate vitamins, for example, taking only vitamin C, taking only vitamin E, they need
these are not dangerous. I mean,
not dangerous, but they need to make sure that they are not exceeding daily limits. The daily limits of vitamins are actually published on the website of
But you can
Ministry
take it
of
for the
Health.
rest of your life.
Yes, if it's not exceeding daily limit, it's okay to take it for the rest of the life.
This type of awareness is also very important, and also the importance of certain culture that some countries are. I mean, they grew up to think that that's okay. Like, eating a lot of meat is very healthy and good, and it's going to support your health and everything. And on the contrary, it's going to.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not sure if I'm right or no, but meat is the last thing anybody would think to eat, because it might cause lots of disease, lots of raise the cholesterol in your blood, and lots of issues. Unlike if you eat lots of vegetables. I mean. These campaigns should include, part of the team, people who are supposed to talk to the people about that also.
Yes, exactly. So we do have, for example, the National Nutrition Strategy for Egypt, which is an alliance between the Ministry of Health the National Nutrition Institute, and UNICEF, and the World Health Organization. The main objective of having a national nutrition strategy in Egypt is exactly what you are saying. To educate people that red meat, for example, it's good, but you do have a daily protein intake. You can take it from red meat, you can take it from fish, you can take it from even some fruits. Do not exceed your daily limit of protein per day of amino acids. You can replace, because we do have a lot of cardiovascular diseases, especially with the red meat. We do have, for example, complications that can lead to gout disease. We don't need to
Gout disease.
Gout disease, exactly. We don't need to go that far. And most important is to balance the meal. So not gonna reach obesity or overweight, as we are saying. Replacing sugar. We are even thinking about some countries are doing what we call the sugar tax. Sugar tax is
sugar tax.
Yes, to make taxation on any item when any item contains sugar. For example, any soft drink with sugar, it will be actually the tax will be doubled. So it will be more in price.
That is true. I mean, that is imposed.
It's already in England. Already in England, and it's actually discussed currently in Egypt whether it will be good to impose sugar tax or not. It seems like tobacco tax. So when you increase the tax, exactly, people will just a little bit refrain from the sugar intake, the high sugar intake, replacing sugar with more natural product like honey or diet sugar. Recently, there was a study about aspartame. People were just worried because aspartame, the diet sugar, the WHO announced last week that it may be associated with cancer cases. However, just to reassure
most of the diet sugar, I'm not sure.
Most of it is aspartame. Most of the fizzy drinks, the soft drinks, are actually aspartame. The diet ones are aspartame included. So we are talking about huge business. Aspartame is selling like $1 billion US, and the intake of aspartame inside gums, inside soft drinks, inside cakes, inside all the flavored, canned in the supermarket. We're talking about business around 150 billion.
But why are they including sugar-free substance instead of the normal sugar? I mean, it's much more expensive.
For diet people, they are replacing for diet or low-calorie intake meals, they are replacing sugar with aspartame.
But for the normal people in normal shops, they use the sugar.
Yes, if you are talking about, for example, cakes, normal dietary...
because it doesn't make any sense.
Pastries and so on.
You bake a cake without the sugar.
It's like having a very heavy meal and a Diet Coke. Yeah, so
exactly. So,
but just to reassure people, it's not associated with cancer for sure. It's probably, the statement was saying, probably maybe associated with cancer if exceeding the daily intake as well. So if they are taking diet sugar, they can still take the diet sugar of aspartame. However, not to exceed 5 grams. 5 grams, we are talking about a teaspoon of diet sugar.
That's the type of awareness I'm talking about, because even the most educated people with PhD, I mean, if it's not in the specialization, they would never know that it's only the measure of 1 teaspoon. So
exactly. Same like salt. We are trying as well to decrease salt intake. Because when you increase sodium in our bodies, the body will be more susceptible to hypertension.
Really?
It will be more susceptible to water retention as well.
Water retention we know about, but hypertension also?
Yes, exactly. So we are trying to limit, because there are a lot of economic studies currently that when you decrease sodium intake by half, you are actually decreasing the probability of having hypertension by 80%. So we need to educate people that please cut your daily intake of salt to half, cut your sugar intake to half. Then if you can just remove them away from your dietary meals every day, it will be great. And we call it in our culture in Egypt the white toxin, which is salt and sugar.
Salt and sugar.
So if we can cut them in our meals, it will be highly beneficial in terms of disease averting and in terms of economic benefit as well.
Of course. So going back to that particular initiative, I mean, it had recorded a lot of success. I mean, and that's why probably the government is repeating and renovating, and like you said, is refreshing it. But I mean, this particular one, the new one, usually every new campaign is a little bit more modern, more vision, more outreach, more informative, in terms of everything. I mean, what is the new version of this particular initiative, health initiative, going to present to some brackets in society? Probably
the new version.
What
the new?
Like the 100, like the 100 days.
So the new version of presidential initiative, we're talking about 100 days. It's enhanced version from the previous ones. We are talking from resources, it's different. From
it comes with a lot of experience also.
Yes, exactly. There's a lot of changes, for example, in the data platform. So how you are collecting the data, how you can actually analyze the data, which is very important. We are collecting data currently on the system. We do have more than 110 million Egyptians who went for 1 or 2 or 3 initiatives. That we have a repetition, that's why it's 110. That can actually lead to great decisions in terms of healthcare, in terms of allocation of budgets. Just a simple initiative like this one can direct Egypt to put more allocated money, for example, to hypertension than it was actually allocated.
According to the latest survey.
Yes, so for example, in diabetes, we discovered that every year there is a burden of 24 billion Egyptian pounds because of diabetes. And it's not only coming from medications cost or the actual diagnostics, it's coming from a lot of reasons. For example, 60% of it, we're talking about 14.5 billions, from the burden of diabetes is coming from complications, not from the treatment. So people are not adequate to treatment, they are not controlled, and then they end up having complications like diabetic foods, like retinopathy, nephropathy, a lot of complications. And then the country is actually treating the complications, and it costs even higher than the disease itself.
So do we mean by the complication, I'm sorry to interfere, but do you mean by the complication is the excessive use of sugar, maybe the culture of eating, of consuming, food consumption?
It's mainly because of control. If a diabetic person or person living with diabetes...
He was born with diabetes, he inherited it.
If so, it's a type 1.
It's in the family.
Yes, this is type 1 diabetes. If it's actually developed later in his life, it's type 2 diabetes. So type 1 or type 2, we do have lack of control from patient side for their glycemic profile. And this leads to a lot of complications. So it will direct us that if we need to allocate money, it's not allocating money for more treatments. This is not needed. We need to allocate money for more awareness. For example, you need to test your glycemic profile. You need to take your medications as directed. Do not actually skip any dose. Because once you are skipping dose, once you are not controlled, you will have a lot of complications. So such presidential initiatives direct us to better decisions in healthcare. It decreases waste, better knowledge about it. So that's in terms of data. In terms of even the process itself, it's becoming better. So I will tell you, in 2015, it was the first initiative trying to eliminate virus C. And
yes, we remember that.
Yes, and it was not that successful as 100 million healthy lives launched in 2018, because we were depending all the time on a process which is completely digitalized and automated. So people should actually register online, and then they follow everything through their SMS services and through the platform services. So it was a little bit complicated. Maybe it's good in terms of digital, in terms of having no paper in process. However, we only have a couple of thousand registered. When we launched 2018 Healthy Lives, 100 million lives, and currently the initiatives, we figured out that the culture in Egypt, we need a face-to-face interaction.
Of course. That's what I was going to say.
We need
all sectors.
Yes, we need people going to villages, going to rural areas, inviting
and
people.
And everywhere, worldwide.
Yeah, maybe it is successful. I used to work in an initiative in Europe, and it was all automated and online questionnaire. It was a bit successful because the culture there, it's okay and acquainted with the online questionnaires. Here, if you are sending, for example, 1,000 online questionnaire, not going to receive much response. As you are going, knocking door to door and inviting people to go to the health units, announcing inside the village or the rural area that today we do have a free screening. It was really successful, just returning to the culture of Egypt, amending the process a little bit. And I always say it's not the top-notch technology, which is great. It's the adequate technology and adequate to our culture is actually the
But
one.
it is the technology that is fit with the culture.
Exactly, yes,
Oh.
yes, yeah.
Unfortunately, we ran out of time, but on our package, zillions of other questions. We're not going to leave you unless you give us another promise for another episode.
Inshallah, it will be my
Because
pleasure,
we really
my
need
absolute pleasure.
Because we're sure that by the fall, another initiative by President Abdel Fattah Sisi, advanced initiative, is going to be
Yes, this year
on the
there's
doors.
new 4 ones.
New 4 ones.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's exclusive. New 4 ones
Yeah.
for winter, and that
Yes.
makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. There is
okay.
the cancer initiative will be launched this
Great.
month, and we do have another 3 for school age children as well.
So we need you 4 times, inshallah.
Yes.
Of course, very delighted to have you, Dr. Islam Anan, lecturer of pharmaceutical
Economics.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming, and all the best for you. And of course, it was our pleasure. Thank
My
you for
absolute
coming.
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess this brings us to the end of this edition of Windows and Current Affairs. Many thanks to all of you. Until we see you again next week, that's a goodbye.